The story of Omekannaya. Omekannaya was once a man of great fortune. His name was known far and wide, not just because of his wealth, but because of his generosity and love for his family. He had 3 children, a son named Chidi, a daughter named Ifeoma, and the youngest, a little boy called Nnamdi. In the days when Omekannaya was rich, life was easy and full of comforts. His mansion stood tall at the edge of the village, with beautiful gardens surrounding it. He owned farms, cattle, and all the luxuries that money could buy. He always made sure that his children had the best of everything. The finest food, the best clothes, and the most expensive toys, anything they wanted, Omekannaya made sure they had it. Every morning, the children would wake up to the sound of birds chirping and the smell of fresh bread baking. They would sit down to breakfast, and Omekannaya would join them, sharing stories of his own childhood and teaching them the values he thought were important. Children, he would say, you must always appreciate what you have, and remember, the most important thing in life is family. At school, Chidi was always the top of his class. Ifeoma had a talent for drawing, and Nnamdi, though the youngest, was already showing a keen interest in learning about the world. Omekannaya made sure that they went to the best schools, paid for their private tutors, and sent them on trips to experience different cultures. He believed that education was the key to a bright future. But as with all things in life, change came slowly. The first signs were small. Omekannaya began to notice that his businesses were not as profitable as they once had been. His investments started to falter, and the lavish parties he used to throw became less frequent. He tried to hide his worries from his children, but deep down, he knew that his wealth was slipping away. It wasn't long before his fortune dwindled completely. One by one, Omekannaya had to sell off his properties, his cattle, and his land. Soon, there was no more money to support his extravagant lifestyle. His mansion, once full of laughter and joy, began to feel emptier and colder. The once thriving family now faced the harsh reality of living without the luxury they were used to. At first, Omekannaya tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for his children. He told them that things would be okay, that they would get through this, but the truth was, the situation was dire. The food was no longer plentiful. The clothes that had once been new and fashionable now looked worn and faded. The children could no longer attend the expensive schools they had grown accustomed to, and the tutors were gone. It was a painful adjustment for Omekannaya, and even more so for his children. They had never known a life without abundance. But as time passed, something remarkable began to happen. Chidi, Ifeoma, and Nnamdi, who had once relied on their father for everything, started to learn how to take care of themselves. Chidi, who had been the bright student, began tutoring his younger siblings. He would gather books and teach them whatever he could, even though the family could no longer afford school fees. He taught them to read and write, to solve math problems, and to think critically. He may not have been able to send them to the best schools, but he made sure they didn't fall behind in their education. Ifeoma, who had always been good with art, started making jewelry out of simple materials she found around the house. She used her creativity to create beautiful pieces that she could sell to the neighbors. It wasn't much, but it was enough to help put food on the table. Her talent became a lifeline, not just for her, but for the entire family. Nnamdi, the youngest, showed a surprising amount of resourcefulness for his age. He would go out into the village and help the farmers with their work in exchange for food or small items. He learned how to fix things around the house, helping his father with repairs and chores. Though he was young, Nnamdi quickly became a vital part of the family's survival. At first, Omekannaya felt a deep sense of shame. He had been the one to provide for his children, to give them everything they needed. Now, he watched as they learned to fend for themselves, and he wondered if he had failed them. But over time, he realized that they were not just surviving, they were thriving in their own way. They had learned the true meaning of resilience, of standing strong even when the world around them seemed to be falling apart. They no longer depended on wealth or material things to make them happy. They learned to appreciate the simple joys of life, family, love, and hard work. One evening, as they sat together in their small home, eating a simple meal of rice and beans, Omekannaya looked at his children with pride. They were no longer the pampered, privileged children they had once been. They had become